Hello everybody, and this video we're going to go through really basic configuration that you can actually configure in your router at home or at work. So the first thing you need to know is the router's IP address, which is usually called the default gateway, and you also need to know the router's login information, which is the password and the username. In a lot of routers by default it is admin for username and password for password. In other cases it actually changes. So if you don't know it, the best thing you can do is actually just go to Google and then try to find out the specific specific login for that specific router. So since I already know my IP address and the login information, let's go to the internet browser. And then let's type here the default gateway, which in my case is 192.168.1.1 for credentials. So as you can see here, my username is admin and the password, as I told you before, password is sometimes by default is password, and then in some other cases it's blank, or username is blank and the password is password. So if you don't know it, just Google it. It's not a good idea to leave it default, because a lot of people know what the default password is, and then if they have access to your internet, you can actually change all the configuration of your router and you won't be able to access it. So let's click login, and when we click login here, it should bring us to the basic tab and the home menu, and then here we'll see the configuration we have. As you can see, the internet status is good, the wireless it's on, and the SSID of the network is Cruz Wilmer. It tells me how many devices are connected to my router. There are 2, and it's telling me too that the guest network is enabled. That's telling me that I have 2 networks here. If we go to the available network tab here, you can see there are 2 networks here. I have Cruz Wilmer, which is the one I'm connected to, and I have Wilmer visitors. So if you're concerned about security and you don't want to give people the password you're using, you can actually just create a really easy password to remember for this network here. It's a good way to avoid people connecting to your network, the one you connect to. So let's see what we can see here. If you go to attach devices, it actually will give you here all the devices that are connected to your router, the IP address that they're using, and the MAC address. As you can see here, this is the IP address that I'm using. This is my IP address of Cruz, which is my PC, and there is another device called here. This is the name, the MAC address, and the IP. In some routers, it actually enable you to configure MAC filtering. What this means is, like, you create a table, and whatever MAC address you put on that table, whatever device has the MAC address will be able to connect to your network. A lot of companies use it because it's the most secure thing that they can do. So this is a really good feature if you're worried about security. I mean, my router doesn't have that option here. I have not seen it, but if your router has it, just practice it and see what it can do. So all you need to do is just add the MAC address here to this table, and then whatever MAC address is here that correspond to a device, that device will be able to connect to your router. So let's go to guest network, and the guest network, you can see, is the guest network is enabled, the SSID is enabled. Enable SSID broadcast. What this means is, like, if you enable this, people will be able to see it here. You can see here it's showing the Cruz Wilmer. If you disable this, you won't be able to see anything. So if you worry about security, it's a good thing to use. Disable the SSID broadcast. So if you go to the internet, if you can see, my router is configured to get a dynamic IP from the internet service provider. It's a ISIP. You can see here, this is my public IP. If you go to the internet tab, you can see here the get dynamically from ISP, which is Comcast in this case. The domain name services DNS. It actually it's assigned automatically by Comcast. Let's go to the advanced tab and see what we can see over there. In the advanced tab, it lets you, if it's the first time you connect the router to your to your modem, you can actually go to the setup menu. You have here internet setup, everything you want here. If we go to the wireless setup, you can see here you can enable the SSID broadcast, the name of the network, which is this. You can specify the channel. If you have problem with the channel you're using, you can actually change it here. In my case, it's automatic. You have the range from 1 to 11, here to shoot. So I'm just gonna leave it automatic. You have the mode. My router is running up to 150 megabits per second. And you can actually change that to 300. I actually tried it, and it didn't work, because you say even though you're trying to use 300 megabits per second, it's not gonna work. Also, as you can see here, I'm using the most secure encryption here, WPA2. So this is really good. And then now let's go to the LAN setup. In the LAN setup, as you can see here, I have the TCP/IP setup. I have the default gateway here, 192.168.1.1, and I have the subnet mask, which is telling me that this is a Class C IP. And then use the routers as a DHCP server. As you can see here, this is telling me that the router is assigning IP to whatever computer connects to this router. As you can see here, I have a range, which is mean that I won't be able to use any IP under 20. So if I have a range here, that means I will be able, if I connect a computer, it may get 192.168.1.21, 25, 28, any IP between 20 and 254 will be assigned to a computer that connects to my network, because I have the range here. Also, if we go to let's go to the security tab. In the security tab, you have the parental control, block site, block services, cache, email. Let's go to the block sites. The block site, you can do really nice things. You can put here any website that you don't want. Let's say you work in an office and you don't want people to be using Facebook. You can actually block that URL here in this box, and whatever is in this box, will be blocked by the router firewall. If we try to use Facebook here, it will tell us, that the Facebook is actually blocked by the router firewall. So let's try it. If you can see here, I already have Facebook here. Let's try to open Facebook. So www.facebook.com. As you can see here, it's telling me that the site blocked by the Netgear firewall. You can put here as many websites you want. If you don't want anybody to use Facebook, you can actually just put it in this box. There is also, in this specific router, and your router, it may change. There is a schedule tab here. You can actually specify the day that you want to block that site or service. So this is a really nice feature here. And then you can actually apply the time zone. I actually have Pacific here. I need to change it to Eastern. So let's go to administration. In administration, you can actually do really nice. You can actually check really good information here. You can see the logs. This will give you a lot of information, about devices that have been connected to your network. It will give you the dates. It will give you the day that it was connected here, and it will also give you, what website you have used, and the attached devices. You have, whatever device is connected to the router, which in my case there are only two. You can see here I have the MAC address, the device name, and the IP address that the device is using. And the set password, you can change the current password if you want to change it. I'm not going to change it right now, I'll do it later. Firmware update, if you know that there is an upgrade, an update for your router, you can actually do it here. Let's go to the advanced setup. In the advanced setup, you have a lot of stuff. You have the wireless settings, you have the wireless access point. Let's go to the wireless setting and see what settings we have in this router. So you can see here I have all this configuration here. Turn off wireless signal by schedule. You can actually do that here. If you want to turn off your wireless, let's say from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., you can actually do it here. Turn off wireless and then add the period of time that you want to have it off. I'm not going to turn it off because I use it all the time. And the wireless AP, this stands for wireless access point. What this means is, you can, let's say you have an office and then there is another office across the hall. This router gives you a really good graphic here, which is telling you, that this is the DSL cable, and this is the router here. The existing router, and you want to add another router so you can have an access point. Let's say you have an office and then there is another office across the hall that is not getting enough signal, and you want to put a router in that office. You can actually just connect it to the existing router, and then just put that router in the office so they can have a really good signal. And then something very important to know about this is that when you're connecting a router to another router, make sure you use crossover cable, I believe. Another good thing here is that you have, let's go to the port forwarding and port triggering. In the port forwarding, you can actually forward any port. Let's say you're trying to connect to your computer from the outside world. You send packages to that router, and whatever port is open in that router, the router will know what computer you're trying to connect to. In my case, I have this service open here. 3389 stands for this is the port you use to connect to a computer remotely. So when I try when I try to communicate with the router and I'm telling you, hey, I want to connect to this port, so the router already knows to forward me to this computer right here, which is 192.168.1.104, which is the computer I'm using. But remember, when you try to do this, you always have to know the public IP address and the port name. My public IP, I will show it. I'm not going to show it, but I'm just going to show you what it is in this specific router, and this is the port that we use. So that's a really good way if you are at a Starbucks and you forgot to bring a USB and you have a file in your computer that you need to print or email. You can actually just connect from Starbucks to your computer and then email it from there. And then here we have remote management. In remote management, you can actually open a port which is 8080. This will enable you to connect to your router remotely. If you want to change some configuration from another office, or you have problems in the router, you're trying to know what the problem is, you don't necessarily have to go to the office and then touch the router physically. You can actually just access it remotely and see if everything is as configured, as you have configured it. So the way you access the router is you usually go to the internet browser and you type this address here, http:// the router public IP and the port. By default the router gives me 8080, which is gonna be HTTP. If you are concerned about security, you can use 443, which will give you more, which is a more secure protocol. That is gonna use secure shell. So that's something you can use if you are concerned about security. So this is the way you're going to access the router remotely. So you're going to find out what the public IP is. You're going to put it in the internet browser, click enter, and then just provide credentials. You'll be able to access it remotely. So pretty much what I have to explain here. I hope you guys learned anything. Thank you.